By late evening, the happy tune I had been whistling was forgotten. My back throbbed like a stone bruise. The muscles in my legs and arms started quivering and jerking. I couldn't gulp enough air to cool the burning heat in my lungs. My strength was gone. I could go no further. I sat down and called my dogs to me. With tears in my eyes, I told them that I just couldn't cut the big tree down. I was trying hard to make them understand when I heard someone coming. It was Grandpa in his buggy. I'm sure no one in the world can understand a young boy like his grandfather can. He drove up with a twinkle in his eyes and a smile on his whiskery old face. "Hello, how y'all getting along?" he boomed. "Not so good, Grandpa," I said. "I don't think I can cut it down. It's just too big. I guess I'll have to give up." "Give up?" Grandpa barked. "Now, I don't want to hear you say that. No, sir. That's the last thing I want to hear. Don't ever start anything you can't finish." "I don't want to give up, Grandpa," I said, "but it's just too big and my strength's gone. I'm give out." "Course you are," he said. "You've been going at it wrong. To do work like that, a fellow needs plenty of rest and food in his stomach." "How am I going to get that, Grandpa?" I asked. "If I can't leave the tree, I can't leave the tree. If I do, the coon will get away." "No, he won't," Grandpa said. "That's what I came down here for. I'll show you how to keep that coon in the tree." He walked around the big sycamore looking up. He whistled and said, "Boy, this is a big one, all right." "Yes, it is, Grandpa," I said. "It's the biggest one in the river bottoms." Grandpa started chuckling. "That's all right," he said. "The bigger they are, the harder they fall." "How are you going to make the coon stay in the tree, Grandpa?" I asked. With a proud look on his face, he said, "That's another one of my coon hunting tricks. Learned it when I was a boy. We'll keep him there all right. Oh, I don't mean we can keep him there for always, but he'll stay there for 4 or 5 days, that is, until he gets so hungry he just has to come down." "I don't need that much time," I said. "I'm pretty sure I can have it down by tomorrow night." Grandpa looked at the cut. "I don't know," he said. "Even though it is halfway down, you must remember you've been cutting on it half of one night and one day. You might make it, but it's going to take a lot of chopping." "If I get a good night's sleep," I said, "and a couple of meals under my belt, I can do a lot of chopping." Grandpa laughed. "Speaking of meals," he said, "your ma's having chicken and dumplings for supper. Now, why don't want to miss that? So let's get busy." "What do you want me to do, Grandpa?" I asked. "Well, let's see," he said. "First thing we'll need is some sticks about 5 feet long. Take your axe, go over in that canebrake, and get us 6 of them." I hurried to do what Grandpa wanted, all the time wondering what in the world he was going to do. How could he keep the coon in the tree? When I came back, he was taking some old clothes from the buggy. "Take this stocking cap," he said. "Fill it about half full with leaves and grass." While I was doing this, Grandpa walked over and started looking up in the tree. "You're pretty sure he's in that hollow limb, are you?" he asked. "He's there all right, Grandpa," I said. "There's another other place he could be. I've looked all over it, and there's no other hollow anywhere." "Well, in that case," Grandpa said, "we'd better put our man along about there." "What man, Grandpa?" I asked in surprise. "The one we're going to make," he said. "To us it'll be a scarecrow, but to that coon it'll be a man." Knowing too well how smart coons were, right away I began to lose confidence. "I don't see how anything like that can keep a coon in a tree," I said. "It'll keep him in there, all right," Grandpa said. "Like I told you before, they're curious little devils. He'll poke his head out of that hole, see this man standing there, and he won't dare come down. It'll take him 4 or 5 days to figure out that it isn't a real honest-to-goodness man. By that time, it'll be too late. You'll have his hide tacked on the smokehouse wall." The more I thought about it, the more I believed it. And then there was that serious look on Grandpa's face. That was all it took. I was firmly convinced. I started laughing. The more I thought about it, the funnier it got. Great big laughing tears rolled down my cheek. "What's so funny?" Grandpa asked. "Don't you believe it'll work?" "Sure it'll work, Grandpa," I said. "I know it will. I was just thinking, those coons aren't half as smart as they think they are they?" We both had a good laugh at this. With the sticks and some baling wire, Grandpa made a frame that looked almost like a gingerbread man. On this, he put an old pair of pants and a red sweater. We stuffed the loose, flabby clothes with grass and leaves. He wired the stocking cap head in place and stepped back to inspect his work. What do you think of it?" he asked. "If it had a real face," I said, "you couldn't tell if it was a real man. You couldn't tell it from a real man." "We can fix that," Grandpa chuckled. He took a stick and dug some black grease from one of the hubcaps in the buggy. I stood and watched while he applied his artistic touch. In the stocking cap head, he made two mean-looking eyes, a crooked nose, and the ugliest mouth I had ever seen. "Well, what do you think of that?" he asked. "Looks pretty good, huh?" Laughing fit to kill and talking all at the same time, I told him that I wouldn't blame the coon if he stayed in the tree until Gabriel blew his horn. "He won't stay that long," Grandpa chuckled, "but he'll stay long enough for you to cut that tree down." "That's all I want," I said. "We better be going," Grandpa said. "It's getting late and I don't want to miss that supper." I was so stiff and sore he had to help me to the buggy seat. I called to my dogs. Little Ann came, but not willingly. Old Dan refused to leave the tree. "Come on, boy," I coaxed. "Let's go home and get something to eat. We'll come back tomorrow." He bowed his head and looked the other way. "Come on," I scolded. "We can't sit here all night." Well, this hurt his feelings. He walked around behind the big sycamore and hid. "I'll be darned," Grandpa said as he jumped down from the buggy. "He knows that coon's in there, and he doesn't want to leave it. You've got a coonhound there, and I mean a good one." He picked old Dan up in his arms and set him in the buggy. All the way home, I had to hold on to his collar to keep him from jumping out and going back to the tree. As our buggy wound its way up through the bottoms, Grandpa started talking. "You know, Billy," he said, "about this tree chopping of yours, I think it's all right. In fact, I think it would be a good thing if all young boys had to cut down a big tree like that once in their life. It does something for them. It gives them determination and willpower, and that's a good thing for a man to have. It goes a long way in his life. The American people have a lot of it. They have proved that all down through the history, but they could do with a lot more of it." I couldn't see this determination and willpower that Grandpa was talking about very clearly. All I could see was a big sycamore tree, a lot of chopping, and the hide of a ringtail coon that I was determined to have. As we reached the house, Mama came out. Right away, she started checking me over. "Are you all right?" she asked. "Sure, Mama." I said. "What makes you think something's wrong with me?" "Well, I didn't know," she said. "The way you acted when you got down from the buggy, I thought maybe you were hurt." "Aw, he's just a little sore and stiff from all that chopping," Grandpa said. "But he'll be all right. That'll soon go away." After Mama saw that there were no broken bones or legs chopped off, she smiled and said, "I never know anymore. I guess I'll just have to get used to it." Papa hollered from the porch, "Come on in. We've been waiting supper on you." "We're having chicken and dumplings," Mama beamed, "and I cooked them especially for you." During the meal, I told Grandpa I didn't think that the coon in the big tree was the same one my dogs had been trailing at first. "What makes you think that?" he asked. I told how the coon had fooled us and how little Ann had seen or heard this other coon. I figured he had just walked up on my dogs before he realized it. A smile spread all over Grandpa's face. Chuckling, he says, "It does look that way, but it wasn't. No, Billy, it was the same coon. They're much too smart to ever walk up on a hound like that. He pulled a trick and it was a good one. In fact, it'll fool 9 out of 10 dogs." "Well, what did he do, Grandpa?"